Wait a second. Just because you're collaborative doesn't mean you're not deciding. You have to have a decider. Yes, absolutely. And just because you're collaborative doesn't mean that you're weak.
Hi, this is Zena Harris.
And I'm Mark Rabin.
Welcome to the tie-in.
Welcome back, everybody. There's lots happening this week. We just had New York Climate Week. We've got Toronto Climate Week coming up. It's Jackson Wild Film Festival. And there's lots of stuff to talk about. And we've got an exciting podcast coming up for you as well with Leena Manro. So, Zena, what's up?
Yeah. I mean, shoot, we're recording this a little early, not going to lie. So by the time you hear this, we may or may not be at the Jackson Wild Film Festival.
We'd like to be.
Stay tuned. But do have a wonderful collaboration going with them. So we really appreciate that. And just honestly, I think, looking back at some of the guests we've talked to and then the ones coming up in the pipeline, I think I've said it on other episodes where it's like, I'm just so excited to, and just inspired by all the people that we talked to, lots of different perspectives and angles in the industry and folks just really getting in there and, trying to do their thing. So it always just warms my heart, I find. So.
Yeah. And just good people who care deeply, right, about their work, about the industry. It's a small industry. It's not a big industry. So, it's been exciting to speak with them, and we're just warming up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, hello, there are a lot of people that work in entertainment in and around, like on all facets, right? We're just warming up. There's a lot to learn, a lot of folks to talk about, and a lot of cool innovation like happening now that, we'll probably touch on here in the next little while. So,
and also guests that are coming back, like Jonah Geschwin, he's coming back, to tell us about the work that they're doing. So not only are they saying they're doing the work, but they're coming back to tell us about the work that they did. And I think that's probably, the single most exciting thing, because we get to see the progress and what they're doing and the metrics that they're measuring against. That's exciting. They're not just talking. They're talking the walk, walking the talk.
Yeah. And just like, this is where I find that I just really like leaning into the follow-up, the conversation, the dialogue, what happened? How do we make it better? How can we do something together? How can we make this cool? And so some people really like when, like it clicks, right? And then you can just, it like rolls so nicely. And other times it's can be sometimes a little clunky, but that's like the joy in trying to do good work and do it together. So I think it's lovely. It's lovely to be able to talk to these people. So I appreciate that. And talk about lovely, like Leena Manro is like a lovely person to talk with. So I hope you guys like this episode coming up, because I mean, she is talking about, what makes a good work environment, her experience in the industry, just this sort of overall like element of calm and also getting off coffee, because we know that's a topic that Mark has been struggling with for a little while. I'm not even, on that train. But anyway, good conversation with
next
her.
week, starting next week, Mark.
Yeah. So hope you like it. And of course, little reminder, please do like and subscribe to this podcast, because it really helps us. It's all about algorithms out there in like digital world. So anytime you like and subscribe or share, that's, kind of gives us a little boost. So really appreciate any support like that. And otherwise, just, my gosh, talk about it, share with a friend.
Hey, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're speaking with Leena Manro, who is an award-winning director, writer, and co-founder of All Purpose, an award-winning B Corp-certified creative agency based in Vancouver. And as creative director and VP of strategy and storytelling, she leads an in-house team that creates powerful, purpose-driven media for corporate clients. Leena has directed hundreds of narrative projects across diverse genres, earning awards for their cinematic quality and storytelling depth. Leena is driven by a passion to make a meaningful difference in her community, environment, and the planet. She's drawn to collaborating with people and initiatives that strive to make the world a better place. Hello, Leena.
Welcome to the tie-in.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's good to see you. It's good to see you. I will say, I will add to that bio. You also have a podcast
Yeah,
called Up to So Good,
thank
and it's
you.
lovely. And I was fortunate to be a guest on that. So I had a great conversation there. So um yeah, welcome. It's good to have
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Yes, Up to So Good. It was wonderful to have you as my guest as well. It's a podcast that explores the purpose of business, you know?
Purpose of business.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
sometimes it
because
can be up to so good, you know?
yeah, I mean, I find, this word purpose, everybody talks about needing it. Everybody talks
Mhm.
about, like it's important, but so sometimes I feel like it gets bantered about a bit. But how are you really leaning into that? Well, how is the work like actually making a difference and purpose driven? Can you unpack that? Like, what does that mean for you?
Sure. So then before I answer that, can you hear some of the groundwork happening out here? No, it's okay.
No.
No.
We just close this window. Ah, no. Fun things about like living right downtown. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great question. So I had a company called All Purpose. Purpose is at the core and the center of what we do. And even the podcast, Up to So Good, semicolon, the purpose of business, meaning that, the idea is that could the purpose of business be making this world better and better, as opposed to the capitalism definition of just making more, making more, buying more, consuming more, making more money, and again and again. This doesn't promote any type of sustainability, really. But if we shift the narrative and really focus on purpose at being the core of, who we are, what we do, the way we conduct our business, what can happen? And so for me personally, I feel like I've had yeah, I love life. I love my life. I've had a fun journey where I started off in this is years ago. But I went to business school, then I went to law school, and I was a lawyer, not practicing for very long. Like I think I pulled out less than 2 years out of it. And in my heart and soul, all I wanted to do was, perform, act, write, direct, all of that stuff. But I came from a really lovely, really sweet family, but somewhat conservative in their thinking, in the sense that that's not something that we would traditionally encourage our children to do, especially not our daughters. And so that was unfortunately the way that I was brought up. And since then, my parents have they're fine, especially when I just sort of dropped everything and said bye and moved out to Vancouver to follow my dream. And so
Mhm.
so it's for me, the first part of my life was very hyper focused on what I thought. I don't think I even used the word purpose because I didn't focus on purpose. I just sort of thought this is how you do life.
Yeah.
You go to school, you get a decent job, you make money, and rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And to shift that and just say, what am I really here for?
Hmm.
We've
Mhm.
been gifted life, a very honestly kind of a short time when you think about relatively speaking. And so, what are we going to do with it? I mean, you have the choice of becoming deeply hedonistic if you want to, sure. You have the choice of not just tuning out and becoming kind of unconscious about what you do and following that the sort of the steps that I did, where you rinse and repeat, you go to work and you have a 9 to 5 and maybe live on the weekends, whatever that means. Or you can choose to live intentionally. You can sit there and say, you know what, I was here for a reason. I am here for a reason. I have a purpose too. Let me see if I can figure out what that purpose is. And let me live on purpose, on my purpose. And I have personally experienced that. And so I can say now, fast forward, I started that journey about 20 years ago. Fast forward to now, and I absolutely love all aspects of my life. And I got to do some of the acting. I got a little bit bored of it, and it was hard to make a living, honestly. And then
Mhm.
fell into writing and directing and producing, and got the chance to do both for corporate film and TV. That's actually mostly where I work, is in the corporate spaces for enterprise clients, but also actual film and TV, where I was the showrunner and writer director for a South Asian comedy that aired on Omni. And that was an incredibly beautiful, fulfilling project. But the underlying sort of the thing that sort of the thread of it was that it was always purpose driven, it was always intentional, it was always joyous. And if you continue to do that one step and then the next and the next, it's amazing how the years will go by, but you'll feel really good. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I cut coffee out about two years ago, which I'm going
Oh,
to say,
smart.
oh my gosh, talk about an addictive
I have
substance.
a
It
love-hate.
is.
It's the most addictive.
It's the most, people
And
talk about
everybody's
it,
addicted to
but
it. Zena knows my
Mark,
trials and tribulations with coffee.
yeah, he's like,
Just
oh,
such a good drug.
I stopped. I'm back, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm just leaning in,
peppermint tea, maybe that's
Yeah.
for you.
I
I,
know.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a major reset of my nervous system. I don't know, but it
Mm,
was on this journey because for me, the purpose-driven journey is one that is it encompasses mind, body, and soul, and
absolutely.
the spiritual one as well. And as I dug deeper into myself and continually asking, what is my purpose? What is our company's purpose? All purpose is purpose. What is the podcast's purpose? And
Hmm.
really doing our best to hold space and help because our work is we're a creative agency, we're a design agency. So we help our clients fulfill their purpose.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We're selective about our clients, and we try to work in spaces and with companies who are doing good for humanity. And sometimes it's not necessarily the whole company. Sometimes it's an aspect of the company. And so we lean in on, for example, education and efforts, and or there might be, for one of our large enterprise clients, they have sustainability efforts, and so we lean into
hmm
that. We do the design effort and the media efforts there, and it's so fulfilling, and that's the way that people should be living their lives. I mean, I wish I could. I mean, that's the whole reason for our podcast, Up to So Good, the purpose of business is to help share that storyline so that it inspires people to do more than just live unconsciously, to figure
Right.
out what your purpose is and know that, you're here for a reason. And it's deeply, deeply fulfilling, very difficult, especially at first.
Yeah. But the
Hmm.
system is geared against that,
It
right? I
is.
mean, literally, it's to distract and intoxify and just keep you away from that
It's
purpose.
Hmm.
so true. Well, and we were just sort of joking a bit about coffee, but if I can bring that back up for a second,
Yeah.
you know,
Near and
it,
dear to my heart.
it is such a wonderful and such an addictive chemical drug. But here's the funny thing,
hmm
something as simple as coffee. Now, I was an addict for over 20 years until it was, and I talk very openly about this. Like we actually have a podcast that discusses plant medicine, so it's fine. It wasn't, it was a ceremony which opened up my mind and my heart to what I was doing, where I was like, I realized I could see the physical damage that my 3 to 5 cup habit, my daily
Oh,
habit was taking on me. And that actually there's a numbing process that was happening, which I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize and it was, I mean, I can reduce, and I have reduced actually. I don't drink a lot of alcohol, but I do like a glass of wine, in the evenings, every now and then, actually, not even on a regular basis. But I found that easier to walk away from. It's easier
yeah.
to walk away from
Yep.
alcohol. Coffee is much harder,
Me too.
Hmm.
right? So you think about
Hmm.
why is that? Well,
Yeah.
if you're living from a place where you're trying to say numb your feelings a little, or you don't even realize you're numbing them, but you're just getting through the day. You have to get through your day. You're waiting for 5 o'clock, or you're waiting for the weekend because you don't like your job. It's not fulfilling you, you know?
Hmm.
So you've got to take substances sometimes. You've got to have that extra 1 or 2 cups to just stay awake and get through the morning. And
Hmm.
that's, I think, what's happened in our society. And you become addicted to it. And the little joy that your cup of coffee gives you in the morning, for some people, that's their only joy. That's really simple,
Totally.
you know? And so it was during an
What?
ayahuasca ceremony where it was
Yeah.
it, it was shown to me, hey, you know what? Try just getting off of it entirely and see what your life is like. And I'm gonna say honestly, it took 3 months of detoxing. And now I wake up with so much energy and I'm a lot more
Wow.
just like
Yeah.
calm
Yeah.
throughout the day. So
I also think that in addition to the sort of addictive properties, we have been sensitized through, this showing of a particular lifestyle, and you go get your coffee and it's a thing and
Ritual.
yeah, and so that, that also contributes then to, you're shown how sort of glamorous and like lovely it is to go do a thing, and I mean, I fall into that all the time. And
mhm.
I have to like wait a second, pull back from that. But that's the power of media and
Mhm.
commercial advertising, all of that stuff. So, and I feel like you're in the thick of that world just in the work that you do. So, how do you, I don't know, how do you sort of lead in that space?
So I think it's worse. Oh, it's a really good question. Oh my gosh. Huh. Again, I think it's worse if you haven't done the work. I think the work is really important. That
Hmm.
personal work, that personal journey that I feel like a lot of people overlook. And it'll still nag at you. For some people, it'll be that thing where as they're going to sleep at night, they're sort of thinking about and then they put aside and they wake up in the morning, or maybe they're in the shower and that the idea of what they really want to do in life comes back to them. And I use those examples because that was kind of how my life was, where I was in my early, mid, then late 20s. And finally, as I was pushing 30, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And I really took a break from all of it. I think that a lot of people I think a lot of people ignore that self-exploration. And so if you're able to sort of dig deep into who you are and what your own personal purpose is, and gently start to separate yourself from the distractions and the entanglements that has made your life to this point. It is very, very hard to do, really hard to do, right?
Hmm.
And the longer you go living sort of a false life that is not filled with purpose, the harder it is to break from that. It's extremely hard, but it's also kind of easy. Because we build a cage in our mind of what the barriers really often are. Oh, what are
Hmm.
people going to say, our family, our friends, and will I have enough money? All these things that happen. But as soon as you start to break away from that, then you become, I think, resilient. And so it doesn't really matter what the messages are around you. You start to not really care. You're kind of like, I'm okay. You become so much more inwardly rewarded. There's a richness there. Um,
Hmm.
that requires personal development. It requires healing. It requires, many of us are broken. We just are. And we have been from various childhood traumas, or, for some people, they believe maybe it's past lives, maybe it's just your past in this life. And I think yeah, it will benefit anyone for first doing that work. And then when you do, you start to see life so differently that the messaging of, in advertising of that lifestyle, you just don't buy into it because you know
Yeah.
what's important to you, right? And so,
Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah, I would say that's the first bit. And that's also where I think if people did that kind of personal work and really looked inward to see what would fulfill them, I think the funny thing is what they might find eventually is that what will fulfill them the most is what they give back to society, is when they
Right.
make these oceans clean and the air clean and recognize that we're all connected. There's a oneness there, and we're connected
Hmm.
to the planet Earth. And you can't get away from that. It is all part of that healing process and that healing journey.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
I do too. I find that what you're saying, like, I think about my upbringing, and this kind of thing never came up. Like, reflection, self-reflection, what do you really want?
Emotions.
Yeah, all of that never came up. It wasn't taught in school, like the family dynamic. Nobody asked anyone to reflect on anything. We were just kind of rolling with the how things go. And so, it's kind of been a learning, later, I say later in life, I just mean, when you get to a point where you're starting to make your own decisions, whether that be, in university or even later, where you have influences that are different than an upbringing, you start to question, or people may do that. So I wonder if our whole society would be better off if we actually talked about this stuff with kids, you know?
Yeah. I think if you haven't been able to figure it out on your own, though, it's hard to have those conversations with children as well. I really hope that we can get to that space though. And with the more healing that happens and awakening happens on a mass scale, hopefully that's where we'll eventually be. Uh,
Hmm.
but you're absolutely right, Zena, that it's just if people aren't having those conversations with their children, it's very, you almost have to, like, how do people
How
sort of,
did they come to it?
and I mean, for me personally, I
Hit
would
rock
say,
bottom.
yes, I was just going to say,
That's the
rock
only
bottom.
way.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Although I have noticed though, I mean, I feel like there's two things that can happen. I think sometimes when you hit rock bottom, you can actually go much further. And when you do
Yeah.
extend even further, that's really hard. That's
Yeah.
really sad. And I know of some instances where that's happened, unfortunately. And that's when sometimes even things like addictions and just a lot of self harm and hate and all that will come, it's very difficult to overcome that. But there is a point before that where if you do hit the rock bottom and you have that choice of giving up or recognizing that, okay, the way I've been doing life hasn't been working, what else is there? That is when things finally start to work. I feel for those people who are just like okay in life,
Right.
right? Because
Yeah.
I don't know that they've had the beautiful opportunity to taste the real essence of like how life can be. That life
Hmm.
can never be just okay, that there's a possibility for it to be really extraordinary. And it starts with yourself. It starts with
Hmm.
what you're doing. And it's really hard. It's really hard, especially for people who've come from really difficult and challenging and traumatic childhoods. Um, but
Yeah.
it is possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. How are you? So how are you taking all of this knowledge that you've, sort of gone out and seeked and sat in ceremony and so on into your day-to-day business and into how you're telling
Oh, I don't.
stories and into how
I just
you're working
keep
with
it.
your clients? Like, how does this infuse into this daily work?
We want to know the secret.
Well, I think you guys have stumbled upon the secret yourselves. I mean, I think you guys are doing the work right now, having a beautiful podcast like this that also explores these incredible positive messages and stories. So thank you for doing that work. That's a big part of it.
Mhm.
And the journey, I don't think is linear. I think it's very spirally. And so sometimes you don't even know when you've hit sort of your purpose and then you do. Like it can happen. That can happen. I feel like, with every interaction with all of our clients, with the work we do, we weave it in with intentionality. There's a reason we don't work with big oil companies and coal mining. Is that a thing? Do people mine coal? I don't know.
Yes, we
Yes,
do.
They
we
do.
do.
Okay, so
It's
they
all
still
mining.
do. All right, so we don't work in those spaces, for a reason. But even if we're working on a client project and for example, the client is this has happened before actually, somewhat abusive to their team, then it's like I don't think the fit is really here for us to be working together. So I think it's not necessarily about you know preaching it or anything. It just becomes a part of who you are, how you do business, how you work with your team, you work with your colleagues. I've been with All Purpose before we were All Purpose. We were a group of independent contractors working under the direction of our now CEO, who was a design director at that time for IBM. And so I've been with, I guess, this group for about this is my 11th year. And
Mhm.
it all started with some random training video that he auditioned me for and many like 12, 13 years ago. And then we kept in touch. And the thing that really struck me was just how kind everyone was. And our turnover rates are quite low. And it's just really beautiful that you can actually work in a corporate environment that is very gentle, very kind, really, really lovely. And even in film and TV, there is sometimes, it was a mentor who said this to me. These are his words, and I thought they were so on point. He said to me, just remember, Leena, that the film industry is the patriarchy meets the military, and then you have to be
Mhm.
I was like, what? Well, no, that's not how we're going to work. And so when we created the TV show, Our Big Punjabi Family, which was a half-hour sitcom, and it was really fun, really joyous. It ended up winning some awards and got nominated for a bunch of other ones. And um, we only got one season, though. Unfortunately, we didn't get a second one. Still trying, though. We'll see. Um, the thing that was a little different, and that was the feedback was that it was a warm environment. It was different from a lot of film sets because I had been on other film sets and I recognized that that's not how we should be running this one. And instead, I incorporated the principles of the connection and the creativity and the joy that we have tapped into on our team and that we talk about very easily and very openly. And I brought that. I think it worked. It was really wonderful. It was a wonderful, oh, it was just such a beautiful cast and crew and the production company that we worked with. It was based in Saskatchewan. That's where we did our filming. The crews there are so sweet. They're so lovely. And it was a little bit of a different way of working.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, you absolutely can. I think you have to just sort of lead by example.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you talk about that experience with kind of taking the sort of the norm of the industry and flipping it into, a warm, welcoming, creative, joyous environment. That message, like just that is what I would love to spread across the industry because um it's possible. You showed it's possible. I'm sure others have done that as well in various ways, but that, like, I almost feel like sometimes when I talk to folks on set, they don't believe it. They don't
Mhm.
believe it's
Yeah.
possible. So this
They're
belief
just used to
is
the abuse. They're
they're
used to the
used to
abuse.
the yeah.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a joke if I say, well, it doesn't have to be that way. So how like how are you spreading that message or how, what what tips can you provide? Like, we need to get that out because it is totally possible.
Mm.
I think, it comes back to maybe even education. And, I think it's so important to educate leaders in a better way of management. And I think, again, going back to sort of the personal work, that has helped me tremendously. And the reason I say that is because I think a lot of leaders are a bit broken, right? And if you've got
And narcissistic.
well, a lot are for sure, for sure.
Mhm.
But I think the word narcissism has been so spread and so
Yeah.
used, and I feel like could it also be something more? Like, a lot are definitely. I mean, don't they say CEOs of companies? A lot of them are sociopaths, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I don't work with one. He's lovely. Okay, but I think from what I've observed, I feel like it is possibly even something simpler, where if you yell and you shout and you abuse, you get the result you want right away. People will listen to you. You can rule by fear. And whereas when I came in, initially there was a lot of question marks, but I was very good at my job. I'm a good director, and so I was showed a lot of tremendous amount of confidence and competence. So that's important. However, there was a little bit of resistance I heard through the grapevine initially. And then that said, I think what happened was, oh yeah, somebody even said this to me. What was it? Um, I have a very collaborative approach when it comes to a lot. And I think, I don't remember if it was one of my mentors or a producer, somebody said, the thing is, somebody has to make a decision. I'm like, wait a second. Just because you're collaborative doesn't mean you're not deciding. You have to have a decider. Yes, absolutely. And just because you're collaborative doesn't mean that you're weak. And so I think, and just because you're kind doesn't mean you're weak. And so
Mhm.
nice and kind are two different things. And people who are kind also have to be strong. And if you have to fire the person or the people who are not aligned, you have to do that. If you have to, get in there and cut ties with, those people who are not mission aligned, that is
Yeah.
okay. And that's extremely important. That
Yeah.
is actually one of the
Boundaries.
things. Absolutely. And so the moment that you start to show those parts, people respond. They're looking for confidence. They're looking for leadership. That leadership can come through a fiery, sort of a mean voice, or it can come through kindness as long as there is firm leadership. I think unfortunately there's two sort of camps. Some people are very nice, but they're pushovers and they're not necessarily confident, and that's not good. That's not helping our cause. But then there are leaders who one of the things I don't think that people understand is that, especially nowadays, you can get your way for a very short time. And you can be seen as maybe being, strong, but again, it's a very short time. Now, those sort of bullying that type of leadership works for such a short time. You're not creating trust. You're not creating a sense of just, I guess, calm. You're not enabling people truly to do their best work. And I feel like when you're leading from a place of compassion and kindness, and when you're willing to listen, and enable people to do their best work, well, then people actually often go above and beyond. They feel
Hmm.
safe to really put together the most creative ideas. If you're sort of you're stuck, they're willing to, throw in a little bit of extra time or just help in so many beautiful ways. And I saw it again and again and again. I see it on our own team because people don't feel they feel they're not going to get yelled at for doing something wrong, for example, right? That it
Hmm.
becomes a learning
Hmm.
experience. And so I think that's what it is. I think we need more people to trust themselves in those kinder spaces. And I think people need to become self-aware. And the leaders who are bullies and abusing people, because that's what it is. It's bullying and it's abusive. Let's first of
Hmm.
all, we should name it that. And when we see
Yeah.
it, we should name it that. And it's really hard to stand in that truth. And I don't know. Oof, but it's important to recognize that that's not normal. That's unhealthy. It's not something we should experience in our personal relationships. It's not something we should be like in our families. Why would we tolerate in our work environments? Why would we tolerate it on set, which is a work environment? Um,
Hmm.
and so then the other piece is, those leaders, if they can become self-aware somehow, and I don't know how you do that, maybe anonymous emails, maybe I don't know. The awakened leaders talk to the ones who are abusive and say, hey, listen, Harry, um, there's a different way of doing
That's,
it.
I don't
Be,
know if it works.
well, because even those leaders who are acting in abusive ways, I promise you they're not happy. They have not,
Something's,
yeah, something's wrong. They've not
yeah.
experienced the joy of what it's like to work in a space where you're also calm, where you don't have to dip into anger every 5 minutes, you know?
Mm.
And
Hmm.
there is power tripping that happens, which is pretty gross. And I think
Yeah.
there are some leaders who just unfortunately have gone too far. It's too bad there was such a backlash on like the woke movement, and there was a big backlash because I think that is kind of how things have to go. There has to be a movement. Um,
Hmm.
but
Yeah. And I feel like, for anyone who may be listening who either experience this type of workplace or are that type of leader and they've been sort of under the impression that, strong, forceful, is good and that's what gets things done. I mean, there as you laid out, there's an alternative and people can change, you know it
change.
it goes back to that reflection and whatnot, and people can change their approach to work and to life if they want to. So,
Well, it's a
Yeah.
human, I mean, we've created all of this stuff, right? I mean, this is what I always think about, even like municipal policy, right? It's always like, nope, can't change that. I'm like, no, but we created that, right? We can change that. Um, but you also have to have the solution, right? What I've found is a lot of folks are not willing to make the change unless there's actually a solution there. So it's kind of a push pull. You have to show that there's a way to do it. Just like saying no more water bottles on set, but if you don't create an alternative, how are people going to get water
Very,
into their mouths?
very true. Yeah, it's a very good point. I love that. Creating those solutions and having more and more mentors. Because you know what?
Mm,
Honestly, when I first started in this industry, I don't think I was quite as bad as an abusive bullying leader, but I was a little bit more firm and I was a little less open to listening and more resistant to it and just kind of like wanted to get things done.
yeah.
And came from a legal background where, again, I feel like that was something that's very normal there. I actually worked with a really lovely law firm, actually. They were very kind too. But hey, you know what? That's what you see. You get things done and you don't tolerate any bullshit. And so I would say, oh gosh, is it okay that I said the word bullshit? I don't know how do
Yeah,
you,
oh
it's
yeah,
a
you can say
podcast.
whatever you want. We've got no allegiance to anyone except for ourselves.
okay, all right, that's good then. And it wasn't until I started to see, first of all, I didn't see a lot of positive examples of this type of leadership until I started with All Purpose and like the team
Mm.
before All Purpose, actually. I would say that our CEO, Robin Ashford, he's such a lovely human. You should meet him sometime. Come on over to our office. Well, I guess Mark's a little harder for you, but next time you're in
No, I'm
Vancouver,
in Vancouver. I live in
He
Vancouver.
lives there. He's just in Toronto
I'm just
now for
visiting.
work.
oh,
Yeah.
gotcha.
I was doing
Well,
a midsummer trip to the east.
Okay. Well, when you're back, come on over for a glass of wine. He's such a lovely person. And it was one of those things where I was just looking at what a strong leader he was, what an intelligent,
Mm,
lovely leader he was, and how he was so gentle in his approach, and yet still very good, very hyper smart. And on top of that, we were also doing a lot of work for different leadership academies for our enterprise clients. We were doing a lot of video, a lot of training, a lot of training modules. And so you're starting to now absorb the actual lessons of what I think one of them was branded as positive leadership or leadership edge, something like that. This was a while
yeah.
back. And so you could see then through the actual training, that's why I say like education is so important. How,
Mm,
you know, what works? What are the best ways to be able to, again, engage your team, to listen to them, to get the things done that you need to get done without being a bully, right?
Hmm.
Bullying
yeah.
and leadership is just, it's prolific, it's
Yeah.
everywhere.
Oh, yeah. I think you touched on something around mentorship. Um, I don't know about you, but I mean, I'm sort of between Gen X and millennial, but didn't have a lot of mentors in my life.
Yeah, yeah, no.
There was a mentorship gap in our generation. I don't know the exact reason why, but something maybe around the boomers, they were really caught up in their thing. But I just found that was really interesting, that I think about quite a bit, that I'm trying to help and mentor where I can, right? And mentorship, it's interesting, right? Because it's not an advisor. You're not going, hey, put me on a monthly, right? It's not something that you're like, well, give me a percentage of that or do this and that. No, no, it's something that has to come from the heart and from a place of deep care and trust and value for the future of that person or the future generation. So I think a lot about that. And yeah, I don't know about you guys, but it's like, you know, have you had those mentors and they're hard to find, right? And the question is also, do you have to go out and be like, hey, can you be my mentor? Or, I mean, how do you, have you come across that? Any
I
advice
think
for like people listening?
I think that when I say mentorship, I didn't mean like in a formal way. I just think it was just I finally found someone that I could learn from and observe from. And just, I think it's important for us to just be observant. You might not
Yeah.
necessarily have to call them your mentor, but to find leaders who are doing it right, because there are a lot that are starting to wake up and do things differently, and they're still
Hmm.
very influential.
Yeah.
And they get the job done, and it's just so much more harmonious when you find those people. I think it's important to connect with them. And even if it's not a formal mentorship, but even if it is, watching how they work. I mean, I was lucky because it was
Hmm.
the same work environment. So maybe if people go back and a leader and a mentor doesn't even have to be someone who's like your senior. If you see someone who is working,
Yeah.
in their role, and yet they are joyful, they are kind, they are still effective, people still listen, they have leadership, and they could be in any position, right? Leadership doesn't necessarily, it's not the same thing as being a manager. A leader
Right.
is someone who's just really pioneering and going forward in a different way, and just sort of is there are people who are natural leaders, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're louder or there's just something about them. Those are the people that I think if we look at, then we can just observe and take notes about what they're doing right. And so I think for me, I was very fortunate when I would watch him and I'd be like, huh, and he was so calm and so peaceful. And I thought, very different from other, I guess, managers or mentors I'd had that did engage in more of those bullying tactics. Those were my first role models or
Hmm.
whatever, right? I won't say role models, but they were the models. And like
Hmm.
honestly, my parents, I hate to say it, my dad more than my mom. Oh my God, he ruled with an iron fist.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Me
so, I
too.
mean, ugh,
My mom.
I think this is the boomers, man. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah. I
All
mean,
right, now we
and they
know.
did the best that they could, right?
Come on, you said no holds barred. We can say whatever you want. It's the
We
No.
can.
boom. I'm
Oh
done.
yeah, I'm in full support of what you just
Yeah.
said there.
Well, and also another thing you said too, which is really striking to me, because I've found myself in different work contexts over my career, in a corporate setting, a nonprofit setting, entrepreneurship, these sorts of things, where when, the way of the world is that there is a work hierarchy, right? And you start at the bottom and you work your way up, that kind of thing. Like that's kind of how it's thought of. And what I realize is that the people who are in, the upper levels, the management, the executives, the leaders of the company, um, a lot of times there's not leadership training, right? And I know that's something that you all work on, doing for your enterprise clients, but not every company has leadership training. And so there are leaders who are put into these positions that don't really know how to be effective or what to do or strategies or that. They just got promoted. And now they're managing, they're leading, and what does that even mean? And it doesn't work well when that happens. And so I find that interesting and can also relate that to, a production or entertainment context as well, where, you worked, your number of hours and now you're, the next level in the hierarchy. So
That is absolutely correct. I totally agree with you. So if you don't have, it's similar to like how one awakens. It's this idea of hitting rock bottom and then you have a choice. It's similar to that where you either have mentors and role models or you don't, or you get lucky and there is some training out there. But again, you have to get really lucky that is your company, one that sponsors that kind of training.
mhm.
And I think a lot of people, you don't know what you don't know. And for a lot of companies, sometimes they don't even realize it's broken. But then if you look at, say, poor retention numbers or anonymous feedback scores, or there are indicators that something isn't working. And I just want to ask, the leaders who are listening, just go back and I ask you, are you happy? Is your team happy? Are your clients happy? Are they joyous? Because that actually is the wonderful byproduct of leadership that is compassionate and leadership that is human-centered.
Mhm.
It's not
Yeah,
perfect.
and you get more
But
in the end. It's the greater sum output of the team that makes something magic and special if they're willing to go in there and be shoulder to shoulder with somebody they believe in as a leader.
totally agreed. Yeah, I think it's really sad that there's still so much leadership that is just downright abusive. That
Most
has
of
to.
it is. I think most of it is.
So again, if there are leaders listening,
Mhm.
if on a daily basis you're yelling at a team member, maybe that feels good to you, and that's called the
Yeah.
ego side of you. That's not healthy. That has to stop.
No
And
yelling.
no yelling. No yelling.
No yelling.
Don't be like my dad. My dad's not going to watch this. I can say with
Yeah.
but my God, that guy yells, and it's so effective for him. And I'm always like, oh my God, I forgot. They live in Alberta, and I go home once in a while. And when I do, I kind of forgot sometimes like how yelly he is. And then I just sort of, my brother reminds me, he's my siblings are so great, and I love my entire family. But my brother reminds me that, oh, the way that you have to deal with him is just like, it's very indirect. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Because he's so yelly. And honestly, that's verbal abuse. It is.
Oh
That's
yeah.
I grew up in a verbally abusive environment, and that sucks. And
But part of on your end or the other side of things, I've had to learn this is to just feel it, take it, and pause, right? And then just be like, okay, give it a sec, right? And then come up with a response. Like it's okay to pause and just be like, oh, okay, nice. What's that? Why am I feeling this way because of this? And then come up with a non-violent response.
it is deeply hard to do, but you're absolutely right. And also, it reminds us of the work that we have personally
Mm,
on this journey. We're all in different spaces, but if part of the thing that I'm trying to do is become deeply resilient, that doesn't matter what's going on around me. I can still go back to that center that I've cultivated, that is a space of calm and peace. And that is part of the work that I personally, try to do. Because,
mm,
I actually used to have a pretty bad temper myself. I did. And it was a lot of self-awareness and recognition that, look, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to approach the world. I don't want to approach my teams. No one at All Purpose has ever seen that because I kind of figured that out before. So I've been
mm.
I've been pretty healthy for at least I'd say about a decade is when it really. But before that, I found myself very quick to anger, and even as a child, I found myself really quick to anger, and I would get really mad at my siblings, and I love them so much. And I remember thinking like, well, why am I like this? And that was part of my journey. And being on the other side of it, being a lot freer, a lot more joyful, tapping into joy, seeing a lot more engagement. But again, like my own personal team, they've never seen angry Leena. And I think that's a
Mhm.
good thing. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't do anything. And you can
Yeah,
feel, but at the same time, I think all emotions are deeply valid. And the messaging shouldn't be don't get angry. I think that's really unhealthy. It's more from that place of like what you just said, Mark, but in reverse. This
Mhm.
idea
Mhm.
of feel it, and then react from there. Because it's not, to those leaders who are getting angry all the time. I'm not saying don't get angry, but there's just a different way of managing it
Take a pause. Yeah.
because you're
Breathe.
because whatever you say in that anger, just because you can, because you've got a subordinate who works for you, right? And they
that's
don't have a
right.
choice. They have to work for you. And
Hmm.
you say whatever you want in that angry state, they're going to remember. They might not remember
Yeah.
exactly what you said, but they're going to remember. They're going to remember how they felt. And
Hmm.
you've lost, they're going to remember. There's a little bit of trust that breaks as a
Yeah.
result. And that sucks. That sucks for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's like a short term, power play and a short term fulfillment. But then, the person doing that, making that power move, they may reflect later, or that they just might hold, this kind of like tension and kind of, they know they're not feeling well, and then they have to keep doing it to keep a persona. And then, the whole team suffers, and, the quality is not there, the camaraderie is not there, like the creativity is not there. So I just find it really interesting that there is a power play a lot of times in these situations, and it doesn't have to be that way.
It
yeah.
doesn't. And for those people who are on the receiving end of that power play, also know that you have choices too. You
Yeah.
know, there's a sometimes this toxic sort of back and forth between people, and it's so difficult. I mean, because I've been on the receiving end of it as well, and the hardest thing that I had to do, there was an instance, there've been a few instances, but just to really stand in that place of truth, no matter what the consequences were, and that's really scary,
Hmm.
but also incredibly empowering, knowing that you don't have to be on the receiving end of it, and if you become in a place of leadership, you don't have to be the one doling it out, because you're absolutely right. When moments become quiet, if you are the person who has been, raging or whatever, as long as you're not a sociopath or a narcissist, I mean, this doesn't really apply to them, but if you are an average normal person, you will probably feel a bit of guilt and regret
Hmm.
and even some shame, and that sucks. Those are also emotions. They're valid, but they're not productive in any way. At
Right.
least
Yeah.
anger is a bit productive, like when you're angry, like if I'm angry that my house is not clean, I'm telling you, I will clean it fast.
Mhm.
Anger it can be like fuel to get something done, sure. But guilt and shame and
Yeah.
blame, like that doesn't do anything. It just makes you feel bad, makes other people feel bad. So
Yeah. Um,
Wow.
Lena, we're on the home stretch here, and what projects are you working on right now that are exciting, that you would like to let our listeners know about?
wow. Well, I mean, I do love our podcast, so I would say up to so good, the purpose of business.
Hmm.
If you guys want to listen to, all more conversations about a little bit different, maybe it's similar to your podcast, which is great, really talking to founders and business owners and entrepreneurs and people who are changing the way they do business, that they're really focused on the purpose of their business being for the people on the planet, and how much happier and more fulfilled they are, and still they're not sacrificing profit, and that's the other
Hmm.
thing. I feel like that's a really important thing that we're working on. But I do have two exciting projects that are coming up in September, that are taking up a lot of time. One is there's some work we're doing. We're going to Dubai and India. And so all of September will be busy with travel. And in Dubai, we're for one of our enterprise clients, we're talking to them about an app that helps them with sustainable farming. And some of the farmers in Dubai and in the Middle East, there's actually been a lot more of a push towards sustainability and environmental efforts. And so that's really cool. So we're shooting kind of like a mini documentary. And that's something we've done in the past where see how much I love my job. I get to travel around the world. Like
I know.
and so that will be really exciting. So we'll take a small team with us here, some cameras, and document their journey with this sustainable app. I'm so sorry, I don't have permission to divulge who these clients are, but they're
No
cool. They're a
problem.
big deal. Then there's another project that we're working on where we'll be going to India, and it is a different hub of the same enterprise client. And they're going to be showcasing really their in general their CSR initiatives, corporate citizenship type of initiatives, and what they're doing in India to make this world better and better. And it sort of encompasses everything, including both social impact as well as the environmental works that they're focused on. And I'm excited about that one too, because my background, I'm South Asian, Indo-Canadian, and I speak Hindi and I speak Punjabi, and I'm excited to, I hear everyone like where we're going speaks English anyway, but I'm excited to just sort of be in that sort of cultural environment. And I might take a week off personally to do a little more spiritual soul searching and trekking out there, which I'm really excited about.
Fun.
I put it to the universe a couple of years ago. I said, I really want to go to India. I really want to hang out by the Ganges River, or, I guess it'd be called the Ganga River out there. Sounds woo-woo, I know, but I did. I put it out to the universe. I'd be like, let's see if I can go to India. And then sure enough, we're going. So that's
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
uh,
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for this
Yeah.
conversation. Honestly, I think we all needed it.
uh, I'm so glad. Well, thank you for inviting me. To be honest, as I was doing a bit of research, I was worried that I might not be the right guest for you because, it seems like but you're focused on a lot of very people who are like, very making things that are sustainable and da da da. But ours is more about supporting, these
Yeah.
types of initiatives through design and through creativity.
Mm-hmm. Which is really
Yep.
important. And then the way you approach it and how you're thinking and then, what you bring to the work. I think this is all this sort of mindset and skill set and, personal work and all of that, every single person can do. Right.
Yeah,
Like they,
Yeah.
so wherever they fall into the working world and their role and whatnot, it applies in some way. And so I really thank you for diving into this conversation. It's been fun.
Mm-hmm.
so much fun. Thank
Yeah.
you so much to the two of you, and keep on doing this amazing work you're doing. Keep on telling these stories and encouraging a different way of being in this world. It's exciting.
Yeah.
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 Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. I know.
Oh,
All right.
where can people find you? That's
Oh,
Yeah.
most welcome to look on our website at allpurpose.io. It's a little different ending, but yes, we're creative. Hey,
mm-hmm.
anyway, allpurpose.io, or and our podcast is also something that is right there on the website, or you could just look for Up to So Good, the Purpose of Business podcast. And we are on all the same places you guys are, YouTube and Spotify, and just everywhere you can look at a podcast. And yeah, that's
Amazing.
about it. And you could drop us an email at hello@allpurpose.io as well. And feel free to get in touch.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. Because now you all know where they come from and
Mm-hmm.
how they do their work. So it's really important. It's really important. Thank you so much,
All
Leena.
right.
I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Guys, all right. Have a great day.
Our designer is Aaliyah Kane. Music is by Peter Chapman. Social media is by Picnic Social. Our editor and producer is Rachel Werble.